Good morning and welcome to another amazing Saturday morning. They're all amazing in their own special way, I guess. Glad you're here. I've got an interesting show today. It's going to be different. And I'm smiling, but I'm hoping everything works technically today. So just let's all take a deep breath, but just encouraging you put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it is indeed time once again for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Well, good morning and welcome. It is Saturday, December 17th, 2022. And if you are tuning in live, welcome right at the moment. And do what I see several people doing up here. Make sure that you say hello in the chat so we know you're here. Once we get going with today's topic, make sure that you participate in the conversation. But I want to say hello to Kathy McCormick. Shalane is here. Kathy Garlick is here. Jay Zetterval, Jerry Zetterval. All right. And Shalane's already doing her job, telling everybody to drink. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting show. And I don't say that with any do I say that with trepidation? Maybe I say that with a little bit of trepidation for a couple of reasons, but I'm hoping everything works technically. I'll talk more about it in a minute, but we've got a crossover to a video presentation shortly, and it was not loading up this morning. So I was in that last minute, oh no, is everything going to work mode? And I'm trying something new this morning that I'm, feeling that little bit of anxiety that we all feel when we're putting ourselves out there. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, all of that aside, I'm glad you're here. And hi, Rick Venturi. Good to see you. It's a great day. I know we're 1 week away. A week from today's Christmas Eve. We've got all kinds of weather things happening all over the country. I know here, I think last week when I was on the air, we'd been having some snow flurries off and on that morning. We really haven't had much in the way of snow here in the last few days, although there was one point last week where our weather forecast kind of showed snow starting around now and going forever. And they've moderated that quite a bit, but there's still they've been going back and forth on what's going to happen in our area because of the way that the Arctic air is coming down, blah, blah, blah. But there has been pretty significant weather all over the country. So what's the weather like where you are at? We've still got plenty of snow on the ground, and we warmed up a little bit the other day. And when I say a little bit, I think there were a couple of days where it got a degree or two above freezing, and we've had a little bit of melt off of some of the snow. There's still plenty on the ground here, so I think it's very, very likely that we're going to have a white Christmas, if not snow falling on Christmas Day. At least a good amount of snow still showing on the ground, so it should be fun. All right, let's see who else is joining us here. I think people telling about the weather here. Shalane, blah, 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 weather, blah, 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 Arctic air, blah, 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 ice fishing. Good, Shalane. And yes, yeah, it is cold, Rick. 23 this morning. I think we're around that same. Yeah, we're right about the same right here right now. So, and we've got some in the forecast, some days in the forecast where the high isn't going to get above the teens and the lows are going to be in single digits. So, yikes. Hi, Georgie. Good to see you here. All right, let's see. What are some of the special days coming up this week? Today, December 17th, is National Maple Syrup Day. These national days are always interesting because lots of times things will be declared as national days, which does not necessarily mean that there is some federal holiday, right? Technically, for something to be a national day, Congress has to have passed a bill or the president has to have made some kind of an executive declaration. But it's still National Maple Syrup Day. Are you a maple syrup fan? It's interesting because I was reading some things about maple syrup, and a lot of syrup that we use, if you go to the store and you go to the shelf where the syrups are, and you buy, one of the typical brands. I'm not going to name the brands out loud right now, but off the shelf, most of those look like maple syrup. They have that kind of flavor, but you'll notice they don't say maple syrup. They say pancake syrup or something similar. Because, and I think back in the day, a lot of those key brands actually used real maple in their syrups. There's a variety of reasons why they don't do that anymore. I think one is the cost. Another is, I believe, and somebody who knows more about these things, tell me if I'm right or wrong, that once you open real maple syrup, you have to refrigerate it so it doesn't spoil. But you can still get real maple syrup. And we used to do that. We used to have a tradition on Christmas morning that I would make deep fried French toast as our Christmas breakfast. Man, that is rich stuff. And it takes a while to make because you can't do them. They don't go by as quickly as just throwing regular toast on the grill. But we would use real maple syrup for that, just to add to the richness, because deep frying French toast isn't rich enough. But so today is National Maple Syrup Day. Are you a maple syrup fan? And do you go for the real maple syrup as opposed to just the pancake syrup when you're using that? Also tomorrow, the 18th, and this date varies. It's not always on the 18th, but tomorrow is the first day of Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of lights, and that begins tomorrow and goes for 8. It actually begins at sundown tomorrow night, Sunday night, and which is the start in the Jewish tradition. Sundown is the start of the following day. All right, so it begins tomorrow evening at sundown and goes for 8 nights or 8 days of Hanukkah celebration, which I think has it finishing right around Christmas, if I'm counting correctly, Christmas or the day after. And then the 19th. Oh, there's one more thing. Sorry, one more thing on the 18th. I dare not forget. It is Baked Cookies Day. And I think that's in there because if you're making cookies for the holiday, that's like people lots of times will make their cookies a week before Christmas, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know why tomorrow specifically. I think many of us have already been baking cookies and done a lot of our own stuff, and got to continue to do it. Do you have a favorite homemade cookie recipe? If you're baking cookies, what cookies do you bake? Are you a chocolate chip cookie fan? Do you make sugar cookies, snickerdoodle? This time of year, do you put icing on your cookies? Do you do them with a cookie cutter and make Christmas tree shapes and blah, blah, blah? To quote Chelan, blah, blah, blah. So what are your favorite holiday cookie recipes that you like? You don't have to share the entire recipe, although you'd be welcome to do that. Always love to see another recipe, but what are your favorite holiday cookies? Let's see, who do I see? Somebody, Carla joined. Hello, Carla. By the way, if you are, once again, if you're signing on, joining this show, make sure that you do say hi in the chat so we know you're here, and make comments as we get into our topic today. If you are watching this later on, some people come in and they watch the recorded version of Coffee Breaks with Steve. You can still make comments in the chat, and please do. We go back and read those, and like to see what people are responding to on here. Hi, Dee Dee. Good to see you on here. Corey Ann is on here. Good to see you. Sharing those holiday cookie baking ideas. The 19th, Monday, is Look for Evergreen Day. Okay. And I don't know if that is tied specifically. I mean, evergreens are the trees that, stay active during the winter. They don't typically lose their foliage. But I think the looking for an evergreen day is tied to the idea. They don't say going out and finding your Christmas tree, but this is the point where a lot of people do that. Some people have already done that, and some people wait until just before Christmas. Traditionally, I think it used to be, you go back to the earlier days of our country and our culture, and it used to be the tradition to go out and cut down your tree just before Christmas, for a variety of reasons, some of which are still valid today if you're getting a fresh tree. And some of it is keeping it fresh because you got to keep them watered and to lower the fire hazard. But think back to the days of old, when the lights on the Christmas tree were live lit candles on a fir tree. But so all the more reason to have it moist and fresh, right? But anyway, Monday is Look for an Evergreen Day. It's always on the 19th. I would think that a lot of people are going out today or tomorrow on the weekend to get their Christmas tree if they haven't already gotten it. I don't know that many people are going to be out on the weekday, but they might be going out to get their evergreen. And then tomorrow is also Oatmeal Muffin Day. Once again, one of those special days for a very specific item. Are you an oatmeal muffin person? Oatmeal muffins, bran muffins. I don't know about oatmeal muffins. It sounds like it's a great idea. I'm trying to think about how frequently I've had oatmeal muffins. Oatmeal cookies, but I don't know about the oatmeal muffins. Are you an oatmeal muffin person? Do you have a recipe for oatmeal muffins that maybe goes along with your baked cookies? All right, the 20th which is Tuesday, is Go Caroling Day. And we used to love to go caroling, different groups. I grew up singing. I grew up being a part of choir, both at school and then later on in church settings. And we would often schedule a time to go out and go caroling, just in a variety of ways. Family, we've done that as family before. It's tougher now for us to do it as family at Christmas time because you typically want to carol before Christmas. And my family, my kids, grandkids, our group, our family group gets together traditionally, typically the week after Christmas or following between Christmas and New Year. And by then, if we get everybody together, if we go caroling between Christmas and New Year, it's a little bit weird because most people are done with Christmas. I mean, they still have their decor up and stuff, but you don't typically expect to see people going around caroling after Christmas. But we've done it before as family. You go to the neighbors' houses, maybe you take some cookies or something to drop off. And in some cases, it used to be also a tradition that people would invite carolers in, have some hot cocoa, have some cookies that they had baked a couple of days before, obviously. But how many of you are or have been involved in going caroling? How many of you still love to see or have had experience recently? We haven't seen it as much in recent years. I think COVID obviously had a bearing on that, but I think also it's just not as frequently done. It's kind of like the fact that you don't see as many churches that have choir anymore. Things have become much more contemporary, and I still love it when on those rare occasions you all of a sudden hear that noise outside, that sound, that beautiful sound outside, and open a door and there are people out there caroling. But how many of you still love caroling, still do it, or have done it in the past? Wednesday is the official astronomical beginning of winter. It is the winter solstice, which there's a differentiation. Astronomical beginning of winter is the solstice. That's the official time when winter starts based on the position of the Earth around the sun and the angle of the Earth on its axis and all those other astronomical things. There's a difference. Meteorological winter goes from December 1st to March 1st. That's when the meteorologists say we're kind of into winter weather. And in some places you start to get into winter weather even earlier. But officially meteorological winter is December 1 is when that begins. It's kind of like saying there's a difference between in the North Pole, true north and magnetic north. I don't know why I'm off on that tangent. I must need more coffee. Wednesday is the winter solstice. We'll leave it at that. Friday, Festivus. If you were a Seinfeld fan back in the day, you recall that George Costanza's dad, Father Frank Costanza, refused to celebrate Christmas, and instead he celebrated Festivus, a Festivus for the rest of us, which was always on December 23rd. The interesting thing is that was only indirectly created for Seinfeld, but there is a story behind that, and that is that a gentleman by the name of Daniel O'Keefe actually started just personally within his own family celebrating something that he called Festivus on December 23rd, going back to the mid-1960s, as a way to celebrate his first date with his wife. They first went out on a date on December 23rd, and so each year to celebrate the anniversary of that first date, which was just before Christmas, he started a tradition in their family called Festivus that they just added as part of their holiday celebration. Well, his son, Dan O'Keefe Jr., was a producer and a writer for Seinfeld. Actually was involved in the writing of the scripts for Seinfeld and integrated that into the storyline because of his family's tradition. So that's an interesting background to that if you needed a background. Special days, birthdays, and that type of thing this week. Happy birthday to my granddaughter, Carson, this week. Tomorrow is little Carson's 5th birthday. And if you were tuned into us, I think it was 3 weeks ago, whenever Thanksgiving weekend was, when Shalane and Carissa joined me here in the studio while they were in town. Carson wandered in and out a few times there. So you've hopefully had a chance to meet Carson. But happy birthday, Carson, as you celebrate your 5th birthday tomorrow. Do you have a special day this week? Do you have a birthday, an anniversary, something else happening that you want us to celebrate with you? Your own event or a family event that's going on that we should take note of? Please put that in the chat as well. And we'll make sure that we are celebrating along with you today. All right, let's see. I want to get into the topic, and I want to introduce it a little bit and tell you what we're doing and the background behind it, and my justifications for it, I guess. If you've been watching the promos on Facebook that I've been putting up this week, you know that I'm going to be recorded it in advance, and that's what we're going to be playing, and hopefully the recording works, or we're going to be changing topics real quick if this recording doesn't come up. But several weeks back, one of my producers suggested, I should say, that I try my hand at doing a reaction video. If you joined us back in October, when Beth from Beth Roars, who is a professional, she is a voice teacher, a singer, a musician living in Scotland, and she joined Coffee Breaks with Steve to talk about doing reaction videos. You can go on YouTube and you find a lot of people who do reaction videos. And typically how this works, you can do reaction videos to a lot of different things. People will do reaction videos to a movie or a TV show or a TV series. And what's become more popular in recent years is doing reaction videos to music videos, either live performances or prepared music videos by certain artists, either individuals or groups. And there are a lot of people out there, some who just like music and they want to react to it in terms of how they as an audience member would react. There are a number of people, including Beth, who was on our show, who are professional musicians, and they have an understanding of voice and vocal production. And some of them, I love watching them. That's kind of how I got introduced to Beth and why she ended up on the show. I started watching them a few years ago, and particularly like the ones that are being done by professional musicians or people who have some background or expertise in music, because if you watch and listen to what they're talking about, it's almost like getting a free masterclass in vocal production, in voice, in choral music, if it's a group, because they talk about how to produce the different tones. They talk about the harmonies. They talk about the dynamics of what the people are doing, and taking into consideration, lots of times they are responding to a studio produced music video where the people that you're seeing pre-recorded the vocals. You can still get a lot of great information. So with the suggestion that I do that, I waited until some of the groups that and artists who I like to listen to were putting out their Christmas or holiday music videos, new music videos, so that I could take one that I hadn't already seen or heard and react to it in real time as I was recording myself watching it for the first time. So I did that. I picked one a couple of weeks ago that I saw pop up. I resisted, very, very difficult to do, but resisted the temptation to watch it ahead of time, and waited until a point where I could sit down, put this camera on myself with the video running, with the music video running, and react to it and analyze it real time. Now, what qualifies me to react to and analyze someone else's singing? I'm not a Beth from Beth Roars. I don't have that level of background training and expertise, but I have been a singer much of my life, been involved in choirs. I've sung solos. I took voice lessons, and I directed choirs for a number of years, many years. and mostly in church settings, which we go, yeah, well, church choirs, what's the big deal? Yeah, it's not professional, but you still have to work on those same qualities and the same principles of vocal production. So while I don't consider myself necessarily to have an expertise that rivals a professional voice teacher or someone who is a professional singer, I can listen to something and watch something and at least provide a perspective. And that's what's going to happen in this video that's coming up. But having said that, I want to invite you to do the same thing. I want you, some of you out here have a background in music that is at least as expert as mine. And some of you are music teachers and work all the time with people, with whether it's kids or adults, and on vocal music. So you're in just as good a position as I am to make your own comments, to provide your own feedback and analysis. And I'm looking forward to seeing those in the chat as we play this. The other thing is, some of you out there may say, well, I'm not a musician, I can't carry a tune, but you can still appreciate music. I'm betting that you still listen to vocal music, and there are certain, we talked about this last week, what are your favorite Christmas songs? And people had a lot of opinions and comments based on their own preferences and tastes. That's valid too. You can be a reactor and an analyst of this music. So a little bit about the artist who I chose and the song that I chose, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. I'm not stalling, I'm just trying to really lead into it. Geoff Castellucci is an artist who I have enjoyed and admired for 2 or 3 years now, at least, actually longer than that. He is a bass singer. It's interesting because in interviews, he refers to himself as thinking of himself more as a baritone, which typically is a little bit higher voice than a bass singer. He calls himself a baritone with a low range. You're going to hear him in a minute if you haven't already heard him. He's got a low bass voice. His speaking voice is lower than mine. When he talks, he's typically down in this range. Now, part of that is when you're practicing your lower range on a regular basis, you get a resonance down there. But Geoff has got this fantastic bass voice with extraordinary low notes that he can hit with great tone. And you're going to hear some of those in this as well. The interesting thing is, Geoff is one of those people who, because he is a professional singer and he's had a number of years of voice, he has also worked with people and learned on his own how to maintain and to stretch and to utilize all parts of his voice. So in the music video that you're going to see, it was set up to where they layered both the visuals, the video, and the audio. And so there's 4 Geoffs on the video, 4 Geoff Castellucci's, and he's singing with himself. He is harmonizing with himself in all the vocal ranges. And you're going to hear him up on some really high notes on the background vocals too. And he's got his mid-range, when he's singing just a lead type of singing, is also just tonally is just strong and rich. You're going to hear all of that in a minute. Geoff is also a member of an a cappella group called Voice Play. And Voice Play, actually, my first introduction to Voice Play was about 10 years ago. They competed on a show called The Sing Off that was on for a few seasons that we loved because it was competition of a cappella groups. And I love a cappella music. And that's where the Sing Off was, where groups like Pentatonics and Home Free, who both won seasons of the Sing Off, first started to come to prominence and became well known to the public. And you've got groups now like Pentatonics that 11 years after being on the Sing Off, probably one of the best known, one of the most successful a cappella groups of all time, certainly of our present era. But there are other groups out there like Home Free, like Voice Play, like Voctive, and others. And Geoff is the low bass singer for Voice Play as well. And I'm going to put, as we get into this, I am going to put some links in the chat, and later on they'll be on my Facebook page, that you can find Geoff's website, you can find his YouTube page, and I'm going to put a link specifically to the song that we're going to be looking at. I will tell you, when I went back and listened to this after I recorded everything, while I was listening to this music video, the sound quality was great. In going back and watching it again, the sound quality of Geoff singing is not necessarily fantastic in the video that we're going to watch, but I want you to then go back. And it's also the other thing I'm going to tell you about it is I will stop and go in the midst of that because I'm stopping to talk about things that he's doing. You also have to, when you're doing these, have to do some stop and go or do some other things so you don't violate the copyright. I can't just put someone else's music video over the air on Coffee Breaks with Steve and play it nonstop without their permission, because I'm basically taking away from their being able to track the views and the listens on theirs. And that's typically by agreement with their production companies, et cetera. You can't do that. Anyway, having said all of that, I'm going to now attempt to put, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to attempt to put the video for this reaction that I did and recorded a few days ago up there. And please, again, make your comments in the chat and let's see how this goes, okay? Wow. Okay, sorry, stopping right away here. But a couple of things right at the outset. You hear those low notes, and right from the outset, one of the things that Geoff does is something called vocal fry, where you kind of get that little bit of a growl at the start of a note coming into the full tone. Bass singers will use that effectively, but you don't have to be a bass singer to use that. One of the other things you notice right away is those rich harmonies in all the ranges. You got multiple Geoffs here, including the Geoff that starts off singing or humming the lead, the doo-doo-doos. By the way, the ooh sound is a great way to start something like this in a cappella, because you're starting, it pulls everybody in, and we'll see they probably then will open up to an awe sound or do something that brightens it and adds to the dynamic and the volume. It allows for that crescendo to take place. But you're also hearing right now that Geoff is utilizing his entire range, or his entire the different passages or parts of his range. So in his main voice, and Geoff, by the way, as a low bass singer, he's got great control, great strength, and great tone, even in very low notes. And we'll see what he gets into in terms of really low notes in this song. But you even hear at the beginning as he's starting, that's low. That's bass sound at the beginning. But then you also hear in the various harmonies, you hear different, in that chord, you hear different parts of his range, different parts of his mix. You've got the main part of his range that goes up to a certain point, the main register or passage. When he crosses over into the next part of his register, the next register, he's using more of a head tone, but he's making it a tighter sound in the larynx. So he's got, it doesn't sound like Mickey Mouse. He's not using the falsetto, but at the top, he's got that falsetto going on the high note. And at the same time, it doesn't sound tinny, it doesn't sound thin, because he's still supporting all of those from down below. Now, keep in mind, again, this is all pre-recorded. And so both the visuals that you're seeing of multiple Geoffs and the audio were recorded and layered. But at the same time, you're going to see that Geoff, typically when he's doing these, his posture, his facial expression, the way that he holds himself, the way that he supports and moves his mouth and does the various things, he may be singing along with it, even though the microphone is not picking him up right now because it was pre-recorded. But one way or the other, he is still utilizing all the same physical elements that he did when he was singing it. So you're seeing those things even in a pre-recording. Okay, we'll go ahead and I'm going to back up to the beginning of this again, and let's listen. There's that ooh, opening to an ah, which just crescendos it automatically. Back to the ooh. And now we're going into the drifters doo-wop.
I'm dreaming.
You hear that vocal fry?
Christmas.
Now, right now,
just like the ones I used to know.
Listen for a second here.
Where the treetops
nice
glisten
visual.
And children listen
so we're
to hear
that low note.
Sleigh bells in the snow. The snow.
Let me just pause again just for a second here. Where Geoff is doing right now on that main part, on the main vocal, the only vocal going right now, is he's got it very much forward in the facial mask. It's almost nasally, but not quite. You can hear that there's that it's all right up here, still supported, still very much with that relaxed larynx that allows that tone to flow forward. So he's got that rich sound, but it's much more forward in the face right now. And so you're kind of getting that sense of right on the verge of nasal, which is fine for this. He's also doing some little slides to get to certain notes, that type of thing, all very effective for the stylization of what he's doing here. Back up just a
to hear sleigh bells in the snow, the snow. Well, I'm dreaming
Still has it forward.
of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card
in the
I write.
Oh, nice. That was nice.
May on days,
Listen to his high harmonies. Listen to the high
merry and bright.
And there's that vocal fry.
Your Christmases be white.
Okay, stop for on a couple of things there. I thought it was great that he's got a very bright tone throughout this on all the parts, all of the Geoffs, as he's saying, may your days be merry and bright. And the tone there is very bright. Let me see if I can find that note that he just hit. I've got my mini keyboard here, so I'm going to back up just a little bit and see if I can catch that low note.
And may all your Christmases be white.
Right. I think that was an F sharp or G flat 1, which is low. That's a low note. Let me back up and listen for that again.
And may all your Christmases be white.
Yeah.
Well, I'm dreaming.
Oh, nice. The nice some runs through there.
I'm dreaming. The sun is shining, the grass is.
Hang on just a second again with that. Listen to the background of the syncopation on the harmonies, the background vocals.
I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming.
Nice.
The sun is shining, the grass is green, the orange and palm trees sway. Ain't never been such a day.
Ooh, that was nice.
Hills LA. Come on. Dreaming of a white
What?
Christmas.
Hang on. You just go into that one again.
Such a day.
That's nice.
In Beverly Hills, LA. Come on.
That was either a G1 with subharmonics. It almost sounded like a G0, but probably a G1. I'm not, but there was enough of a subharmonic in there that it almost felt like there was an octave below that as an undertone.
Beverly Hills, LA. Come on. Dreaming of a white
That's low.
Christmas. Just like the ones I used to know. Like the ones I used to know. Where the treetops glisten and children
There's that mix.
and to hear sleigh bells in the snow. The snow.
Okay, got to pause again for a minute and go back. When Geoff number 2 here in the white or beige sweater took over, you heard that mix. Now he's up in the head tone, but it's not falsetto. He's in the mix, which means that he's still getting that tighter tone, right? That makes it sound. This is where you can go right from your main register into the upper register without getting that flip. So listen to that one more time. Let's see if I can get the right lead in here.
Just like the ones I used to know. Like the ones I used
You get that great syncopation. Here we go.
Glisten Children listen to
He's into second register there.
sleigh bells in the
But it's
snow.
not falsetto.
The snow. Well,
Oh.
I'm dreaming of a white,
Dreaming
of a white, with every Christmas card. Oh, with every card I write.
Visuals are great too.
May your days, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. Just like your Christmases be white.
I was another one.
And may
Was that book?
all
Right.
your Christmases
Nice one.
be white.
Sustaining that low note. What was that? That was a G1. That was again a G1 that he was sustaining at the end, along with those other. It was beautiful. Some leading chords that probably sounded almost like there might have been a minor, maybe a minor seventh or a diminished fifth or something in there. But that was great as he moved through that. I want just to hear that last little chord progression again, if I can line up right to it. Hang on,
All your Christmases be white.
That is gorgeous. Okay, back live. That was it. And again, I actually listening to it this time through the quality on Geoff's music video didn't sound as tacky as I thought it would. You're still not getting the full depth and richness of it by watching that reaction video. It didn't reproduce as well. That's why I hope I put the link in already for Geoff's YouTube page where you can see all of his music videos and specifically the link to go right to this version of White Christmas. But wow. Yeah, Shalane, I think you're right. We got about 82%. And it still, I think, gave you an idea. There are a few things that I probably should have said during that I didn't. I think as I go back and watch it now, covered probably the basics that I would want to, and the things that I'm qualified enough to really be able to speak about. One of the things I put it in the chat here, when you listen to somebody like Geoff Castellucci, you go, well, I could never do that. Well, to a degree where you're right, I can never do what he's doing. I am a baritone, and on a good day, I can utilize low note subharmonics and other things and get down into this range. But I don't have the strength. I don't have the natural, that stretching, that length. Part of it is based on the length of your larynx, your what we refer to as vocal cords or the vocal folds, because it's just like on a stringed instrument or anything else. The longer your vocal folds are, the lower those vibrations can take place, right? So, which is why obviously you have partially the reason that you have a difference between most female voices and male voices. Now, there are men who can get up what are called countertenor range. Beth Rohr's referred to it when she was on. She talked about a singer by the name of Dimash. And that's a topic for another day. But at some point you should go on. If you're going on YouTube and looking for some of these people, look for Geoff Castellucci, look for Voice Play. And the other thing with groups like Voice Play, man, they put together an entire show when they do a music video. There's a lot of work that goes into the arrangements and the visuals. They have some fantastic stuff out there as a group. So look for Voice Play. I don't have their link here. I may put it on my Facebook page. But when you got singers, and I mentioned Dimash, who is one of the most fascinating and outstanding and shocking singers in the world today. He's got a baritone register when he's singing in his lower register that probably rivals my lowest notes, but he can get up into notes as high as Mariah Carey, a whistle tone. And he's got an in between the low notes and that whistle tone where he can sing alto and soprano. And when you have male singers who can get up into that soprano range, we refer to them typically as a countertenor. It's different in boys choirs. That's more of a natural thing because many of those boys' voices haven't changed yet. But there are adult male singers who can get up into that high range. And it's easier for a low singer to do that because you can tighten up on, and through practice and through proper technique, you can effectively shorten the vibrations on your vocal folds in order to create a high note, which is why men can get up into a falsetto or up into a high register with practice. And we used to have, when I was directing choir, I had particularly one bass singer. He had a naturally low voice. He could hit pretty low notes. And for several years, he told me, I can't get up to the high notes. I can't get up to the higher baritone notes. And I worked with him individually. We worked a lot with the choir in terms of practicing how you slide up, how you continue to support and slide up through that mix. Right. There are exercises. I'm not going to do them here just to spare you all, but like an exercise called a siren, where you practice sliding your voice on an ah, typically up and down and going past that break point. And when you first do it, typically you're still hitting that flip or that break point into your upper register. But if you continue to practice it, you can get to the point where you can move up into that higher register, what's called that mix, without flipping into that break point. And then you don't have to do that flip or that higher until you get up into your falsetto. But for someone like Geoff, and you heard it in this music video, where you've got Geoff singing the very, very low notes down into that G1. And I still believe that with the subharmonics, there may have been a vibration down there that was an octave below that. But he was getting up into high notes that were probably somewhere around, I think, maybe at least like a G4, if not a G5. So you're talking about more or less like a 4 or 5 octave range when he's using his entire vocal range with all the registers or passages that he can use. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. I am glad I did it. It was not as stressful as I thought it was going to be. It may be my one and only reaction video that I ever do, other than if I just do it for my own fun and don't put it on the air. But I appreciate that you followed along with this. Appreciate that you were hopefully enjoying it to some degree as well. And continue. You can go back and watch this again. I would also love if you go onto Geoff's site. By the way, the other thing I'm going to put on here, the last thing I'm going to put on here as a link, and again, all of these will be on my Facebook page, but this is going to be, and I've got to take a moment to type here, is the link to Geoff Castellucci's website. And he's got some, I think, links to all the stuff that he does on his YouTube page. He's got some other things. One of the things that Geoff Castellucci also does is he's produced some videos over the last couple of years where he just talks about questions that he gets about vocal production and kind of almost gives his own little masterclass in these videos. He has a very interesting video out there that he did with his wife, Kathy, who is also a singer, and that's how they met, but talking about her hearing loss and how they discovered that, how that's affected her, and what they have done to work on correcting that, or at least dealing with it. And you'd think, well, that just sounds heavy. It's actually a very entertaining video. But I hope that watching this, you gained an appreciation for an aspect of singing that maybe you weren't introduced to before. I would really, again, encourage you to go back on the YouTube site and just watch this video of Geoff Castellucci singing White Christmas beginning to end, and look for his other videos. He really is a fantastic singer. I want to tell you some things that are coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. As we get through the holiday season, Coffee Breaks with Steve will be on the air next week. We're going to talk on Christmas Eve. We're going to talk about holiday traditions, family holiday traditions, and talk about the ones that we grew up with. Which ones did we carry forward as we became adults? Were there traditions from our childhood that we carried forward to continue with our families? And what were the new ones that we adopted as our own families, within our own families, that maybe our kids, as they have grown up and moved on, if you've got kids in that age range, have taken with them as well. And then in a couple of weeks, December 31st, New Year's Eve, we're going to talk about what a year it has been. We're going to look back over 2022. I'm going to share some of my highlights. And boy, was this a year of change for us in retiring and moving and all the things that have gone with 2022. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and I want to hear yours. I want you to reflect a little bit on the highlights of this last year and what you'll remember and what you're going to use as lessons learned to take into the next year, which takes us to the first weekend in January 7th. We're going to talk about new beginnings, not New Year's resolutions, but there is a lot out there that psychologists and life coaches and others will tell you about the importance of looking at times like the new year as an opportunity to start over on some things, to get a fresh start on certain things. So we're going to talk about those in a couple of weeks. We've got other things. We've got a full schedule of guests and topics going well into 2023. I don't even have time to tell you about all of those at this point, but I just do want to let you know that we've got a lot going on. I hope you will continue to tune in and even pass the word. There may be other people in your circles that you think would be interested in some of the topics, not necessarily saying that it's a big deal for new people to join Coffee Breaks with Steve who are strangers, not looking to expand this to thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. I like the fact that we've got an intimacy to what we do, that we're all gathered around our virtual coffee table each week. But I think that sometimes there's this, maybe for a specific week, a specific topic, a specific guest that you know that someone in your circle would be interested in being a part of the conversation. You're welcome to invite them and let them join what we're doing for those situations. So until then, as you go out and find an evergreen today or bake cookies or whatever else you're doing, please do be safe and have a great time out there. And as well, just remember, particularly maybe in this holiday season when so many people are dealing with a lot of things. For some people, this is a difficult time of the year, and some people are also just trying to get by financially and in other ways. And we all know people around us who maybe could use a little bit of extra encouragement, a little bit of extra help. So please find a way to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week.